The day after my surgery, still moving with a walker. My son called and said, "You're home doing nothing anyway. I'm leaving my 3 kids with you. We need a break from parenting." I sat there, pain radiating through my hip, but my voice stayed calm. I said, "All right, bring them." Then I hung up and made arrangements he'd never forget. Because motherhood doesn't end when the body weakens, it sharpens when the truth is tested. What happened next turned my quiet recovery into the turning point of our entire family. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. It truly helps this community grow. The pill organizer chirped just as I was easing myself into the recliner. My right hip throbbed, a steady pulse that reminded me of the surgery still healing beneath the bandages. I reached for the phone, expecting a check-in from my son. Instead, Joran's voice came sharp and hurried. "You're home doing nothing anyway. I'm leaving the kids with you for a week. We need a break from parenting." For a second, I thought the medication had muddled my hearing. I steadied my breath, the way I used to when a patient panicked before an injection. "Joran," I began, but he'd already hung up. The line clicked to silence, leaving only the faint buzz of the pill timer still counting down. I set the phone beside the glass of water and focused on breathing evenly. The house felt too still. I swallowed my medication, clicked the organizer shut, and made a note of the time, 1:57 p.m. The blinds cut thin bars of sunlight across the floor. No angry callback, no dramatic retort, just quiet. Then the doorbell camera pinged. The feed opened to a scene that made my stomach twist. Joran's car idled at the curb. 2 black trash bags landed on the driveway, thudding like discarded laundry. Behind them stood Brianna, Karen, and little Asha, huddled together under the low Texas sun. Through the windshield, I saw his face lit by the glow of his phone. "Text me if anything's serious," he said flatly before pulling away. I caught the license plate in the reflection. The timestamp blinked 2:04 p.m. I pressed Save Clip. The chirp of the pillbox echoed again, perfectly on schedule. That sound had always meant order, healing, purpose. Now it meant record-keeping. I reached for my walker and pushed myself upright. The children stared at the closed door, unsure whether to knock again. When I opened it, they straightened, as if bracing for scolding. Instead, I smiled. "Shoes off by the mat, please. Let's wash our hands before anything else." Asha nodded quickly, clutching her small backpack. I didn't mention their father, not a word. They didn't need that burden. The living room filled with the small sounds of normal life, running water, cupboard doors, a sneeze muffled into a sleeve. Their clothes smelled of fast food and fatigue. The trash bags held wrinkled uniforms, a half-stuffed teddy bear, and snack wrappers. I set out water, plain crackers, and folded throws from the couch. My old nurse's instincts stirred. Triage by kindness. When the room settled, I opened the doorbell feed again. The video replayed. Car, children, timestamp, departure. I captured still frames and stored them in a labeled folder. March 10th, 2025, drop-off. The second pill alarm beeped, reminding me that structure was survival. I muted it, not because I'd forget, but because I needed silence to think. The kids had clustered around the kitchen island now, munching quietly. "Who wants apple slices?" I asked. Brianna managed a small smile. "We're okay, Grandma," she said. I didn't push. Sometimes nourishment began with calm, not calories. I fetched the spiral notebook from the side table and cleared a space on the counter. On the first line, in steady letters, I wrote one word: arrangements. Underneath, I listed what must come next. Call Lacey. The retired social worker who knew the system, text Sherry, the neighbor who could witness the drop-off, schedule a telehealth check for the children, create a grid of timestamps and photos. I didn't text Joanne, not yet. Timing mattered more than outrage. The house ticked with the rhythm of the wall clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of 3 tired children finding comfort in routine. Silence, I reminded myself, isn't weakness. It's space, wide enough to build something that lasts. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft rhythm of the pill timer I'd synced earlier. I steadied myself on the walker and moved toward the kitchen. The children stood awkwardly near the doorway, Brianna clutching Asha's hand, Kyron looking at the floor. I lined up 3 glasses of water and set out crackers and a few slices of cheese. "Sit, darlings," I said softly. Kyron reached first, swallowing fast, as if afraid it might vanish. Asha hesitated until Brianna gave her a nod. I noticed how small their movements were, trained not to ask for too much. Their shoes squeaked faintly on the tile. I handed out paper towels, guiding them to wash their hands. "Soap between fingers," I reminded, my voice steady but gentle. The scent of lemon dish soap filled the air, the smell oddly comforting. Brianna turned on the sink again. "They haven't had much to eat," she whispered, embarrassed. I nodded. Her sleeves were worn thin, and the knees of her jeans were pale from overuse. She looked like someone twice her age. The clock ticked past 3:30 as the sunlight shifted across the counter. Karen tried to stuff a few crackers into his pocket. "For later," he murmured. I let him. Instead, I took a small zip bag from the drawer and placed the crackers inside. "Here," I said, labeling it tomorrow snacks. His eyes softened, and Asha giggled, clutching the bag like treasure. Compassion didn't need pity, it needed calm hands. After they'd eaten, I took photos of the dishes, their uniforms, even the labeled snack bag. Each image bore the timestamp. My notebook opened beside me, dated and timed, no emotion, just observation. 3:45, 4:15 p.m. intake. The header read, I dialed Lassie, my old colleague from the hospital. They dropped them off like luggage. I told her. She didn't gasp, only said, "We'll need structure. I'll email a 7-day checklist, neutral language only." Within minutes, the printer hummed, spitting out the first form. Relief came not as tears, but as order. Next, I texted Sherry across the street. "Please note the car. Time. Any activity from your Ring camera." Her reply came fast. "Got it. You're not alone." Through the blinds. I saw her porch light blink twice, a silent reassurance. I turned back to the kitchen, listing on my phone symptoms for each child: fatigue, bruises, unwashed hair. I booked a telehealth appointment for tomorrow and an urgent care slot for tonight. My nurse's mind clicked into its old rhythm, calm and methodical. The world might crumble, but paperwork and timing could still hold it together. The pill alarm chimed again, steady as a metronome. I matched it to the children's new rhythm: dinner, bath, story, bed. Each sound meant security now, not control. I taped sticky notes on the fridge: water, bath, bed. Simple things that meant stability. My phone buzzed once. Joanne. "All good?" I stared at the message for a long moment before replying. "We're fine." I saved the exchange, timestamp and all, then turned the screen face down. The timer on the counter ticked toward 6. The kids were coloring at the table, their laughter low but genuine. I breathed out slowly, the first real breath since morning. I set the kitchen timer and, for the first time that day, the house kept time with me. The first sound of morning wasn't the coffee maker or the pill alarm, it was the phone. Its ring cut through the quiet at 6:45 a.m. I reached for it, careful with my hip, and pressed play on the voicemail. This is an automated message from Briarwood Elementary. Your student, Brianna Crow, has been absent for 5 consecutive days. The voice droned on while my eyes flicked to the refrigerator calendar. Empty squares, no notes, no check marks. A whole week vanished into blank space. My son hadn't even bothered to pretend they were in school. Toast sat half-eaten on the counter, the butter pooling. The air felt heavy, like shame pressing against the walls. Brianna stood in the hallway, holding Asha's blanket. "Is that about school?" she asked quietly. "Yes," I said. "We're going today." The morning moved in slow rhythm. I stirred oatmeal while the blinds leaked stripes of sunlight across the table. Brianna fed Asha small spoonfuls, coaxing her with patience beyond her years. Kyron sat silently, left arm tucked beneath the table. When I asked if he wanted more milk, he shook his head without looking up. His right hand gripped the edge of the bowl too tightly. I didn't push. I'd learned long ago that children guard pain like small animals, cornered, afraid, ready to hide deeper if chased. When breakfast was done, I knelt to tie Kyron's shoes. My cane rested beside us, catching the morning light. That's when I saw it, a dark bruise running along his forearm, the shape narrow, parallel, too even to be a fall. He flinched when my thumb brushed it. I fell. He said too fast. "Of course," I replied softly, memorizing the pattern, the color, the kind of bruise that had a story adults didn't tell. I stood, bones aching, heart steady. Emotion was a luxury. Documentation was survival. I called Lacey. 5 missed school days, I began, and a bruise yellowed, shaped like a grip. Her voice came clear and firm. "You did the right thing calling. Bring them in. Let the system do the talking, not you." I wrote her words down, underlined them. Let the system do the talking. By 8, we were at Briarwood. The front desk assistant tried to smile, but her eyes darted from my cane to the children. Nurse Patel met us with calm efficiency, latex gloves, clipboard, the scent of sanitizer. She examined Kyron's arm gently, then looked at me. "You said this appeared today?" "I noticed it this morning." She nodded. "It's healing, older than a day or 2. Her pen moved quickly. "I'll make a note." "I also see signs of mild malnutrition. Thank you for bringing them." She didn't ask where their parents were. She didn't need to. The silence between us said enough. Across the hall, Brianna's teacher lingered by the door. When I passed, she murmured, "I thought something was wrong." Tati, her voice cracked on thought. I didn't answer. I only nodded. Sometimes silence is the truest indictment. By the time we got home, the sunlight had shifted again. Longer, harsher. The house smelled faintly of oatmeal and lemon cleaner. I cleared the dining table, opened my spiral notebook, and began dividing pages by color-coded tabs. Brianna, school, Kieran, health, Asha, sleep. Printed photos slid into plastic sleeves, time-stamped, labeled, dated. I titled the front page, Evidence Grid. The phrase looked clinical, but it steadied me. Systems may fail, but data spoke its own language. As I finished taping the final photo, my phone lit up. A text from Duran. "Everything okay?" I typed back. "All documented." He didn't reply. The house exhaled. I sat back, listening to the clock tick toward 2:30, and let the quiet fill in where trust had once lived. Tomorrow, I expected a thank you. Instead, I got a warning. After we got home from the school nurse, The house settled into that late afternoon quiet where the refrigerator hum sounds like a clock. I set my pill organizer beside the laptop, lined the children's vitamins next to it, and angled the camera toward the kitchen table. Kyron coughed, the dry kind that sits high in the chest. Asha's hands were red and cracked from overwashing or from not washing at all. Hard to tell which. Brianna hovered, ready to help. A child rehearsed in adult timing. Mara, the telehealth PA, appeared in a small window, calm voice, tidy bun, the cadence of someone who has seen everything and chooses precision over drama. "Let's go one child at a time," she said. I gave facts, not adjectives. Fatigue, 5 missed school days noted by robocall, a healing bruise on Kyron's forearm documented this morning by the school nurse, inconsistent hygiene, a rescue inhaler in the cabinet past expiration. I read the lot number. I did not speculate on causes. Mara typed as I spoke. "I'm documenting. Caregiver reports inconsistent hygiene. Recommend routine and monitoring," she said, then sent an e-prescription and a visit summary. I screenshotted the screen, downloaded the PDF, and saved both to the evidence grid. When the call ended, the house exhaled. I slid printouts into plastic sleeves, added photos of the medicine shelf, and wrote down the pharmacy's ready time, 4:10 p.m. The kitchen timer started for homework. 20 minutes on, 5 off. Small structure breeds steadiness. The pill alarm chimed and I swallowed without fanfare. Order. Not heroics. Morning brought a thin sun and the groan of my hip when I stood. I took the walker, tucked a reusable bag into its seat, and headed to H-E-B. Milk, apples, oatmeal, peanut butter, hand soap. Nightlights, things that make a house feel tended. A clerk offered a cart escort. "I can push. Loading would help," I said. The old nurse in me knows the dignity of doing and the wisdom of asking just enough. At checkout, I kept the receipt flat and uncreased. Paper is proof. Memory is not. Sherry texted as I turned into my street. "I'm outside." She carried the heavier bags to the porch while I lifted light ones. No fuss. Inside, I photographed the groceries lined up beside my notebook, timestamp glowing at the top of the phone screen. The image looked ordinary. That's the point. Ordinary is the foundation children stand on. By afternoon, Lacey's sedan eased into the drive. She came in with a canvas tote and a voice tuned low for skittish hearts. At the table, she set out consent forms and explained them plainly, what she could document, what she would share, what she would not. I signed. The pen left a steady line. She spoke to each child separately in the guest room. Door ajar. Questions soft and practical. Who wakes you? Who makes breakfast? What time is lights out? Do you pack your lunch? Or does someone help? I sat in the hallway with my cane across my lap, hearing only the rise and fall of their small voices. No leading, no prodding. She let their normal reveal the neglect. When she finished, Lacey summarized in professional neutral. Brianna consistently performs caregiver tasks most mornings. Kyron demonstrates food-guarding behaviors. Asha exhibits bathroom anxiety and hand chapping. School reported absences. Nurse recorded bruise and mild malnutrition indicators. Times and dates attached. No adjectives about character. No hunting for villains. Just patterns the system recognizes. We copied everything twice. Her folder and mine. She tucked her set into the tote and stood. "Next steps," she said. "I file within the school and flag the pediatrician. You keep your routine. If anything escalates, text me the timestamp and a 1-sentence note." I walked her to the door. The late sun made the porch concrete warm underfoot. Sherry waved from across the street, 2 fingers at her brow. The old neighborhood salute that means I see you. Back in the kitchen, I taped a sticky note to the fridge. Inhaler 4 p.m. Pick up early bedtime. The nightlights went into wall sockets along the hallway, soft amber pools to make bathrooms less frightening and shadows less loud. Brianna read to Asha while Kyron sorted pencils by length, small acts of control that made me love them more fiercely. My phone vibrated once. Joran, update? I typed, medical and observational notes updated. I watched the 3 dots appear, then vanish. Seen slid under my message and stopped there. I archived the thread and placed the phone face down. I taped the refill reminder to the fridge and set one more timer, this time for a conversation. The house was quiet when I heard his truck pull in. I turned off the stove and set 2 mugs of coffee on the kitchen table, one for him, one for me. I placed the spiral notebook beside a thin manila folder, both lined with tabs and timestamps. The pill organizer chirped from the counter, a soft reminder that my body still had its limits. I silenced it and straightened the papers. In the den, the homework timer clicked steadily, the rhythm of pencils and quiet breath. Everything looked ordinary, not staged, just honest. When Joran walked in, he was still half engaged with his phone. "You didn't have to make coffee," he said, as if this were an after-work visit. I slid the mug toward him. "Sit," I said gently. He sat but didn't look at me. I started with facts, not feelings, dates, times. Drop-off at 2:32 p.m. School absences logged Monday through Thursday. The telehealth refill for Kieran's inhaler. I used no adjectives. He tried humor. Something about Grandma the detective. I let the silence flatten it. Then I pulled the first pair of photographs from the folder. One was his social media post from the resort. A blue pool, 2 margaritas, a timestamp in the corner. The second was my doorbell capture from that same day. The curbside shot of 3 children and 2 black trash bags. I placed them side by side. Metadata doesn't lie, I said quietly. His jaw tightened. "You're really doing this?" he asked. I didn't answer. I only turned the page. Next came the pattern, not the moment. The school's robocall record, the counselor's note about caregiver behavior in a child, the telehealth summary noting an expired inhaler and inconsistent hygiene. Each page carried a date, a time, a witness. "This isn't personal," I said. "It's procedural." He exhaled through his nose, the sound of someone who knows he's lost the argument before it begins. When I opened the folder fully, the color-coded evidence grid covered the table, 3 columns, one for each child. Beneath it lay a printed card, CPS home visit Sunday, 2:30 p.m. I said one line, "We'll be ready." The homework timer in the den beeped, almost on cue, as if marking the moment. He shifted tactics. "Mom, you're overreacting. We were exhausted." Then, "It's not like they were starving." Then the joke, "You should have been a cop." I didn't pick any of them up. "These are records," I said, "not opinions." I turned the folder so he could see his own messages attached to the log, each text archived with date and time. "It's not about shame," I added. "It's about correction." Finally, I explained what would happen next. Until Sunday, routines stay the same. No unsupervised pickups. All communication in writing. He started to argue, but I opened my phone, typed, and hit send, summary of meeting, Thursday, 7:42 p.m., boundaries stated, evidence shared. The message pinged on his phone while he was still at the table. He stared at the untouched coffee and rubbed his temple. When he stood to leave, his chair barely made a sound. The screen door clicked shut. From the den came Asha's small voice. "Can I keep the nightlight even when Daddy comes back?" I said yes. I walked to the kitchen, looked at the table. 2 mugs, 1 folder, the CPS card on top. and took a photograph. Then I filed it under today's date. By 1 o'clock, the house felt like a clock wound tight. I wiped the table one last time, laid out the folder, the photos, the nurse's note, the telehealth summary, and the grocery receipt in neat order. The pill organizer beeped. I silenced it. Every surface looked lived in but clean. The towels folded, dishes put away, the fridge lined with colored sticky notes. The doorbell camera's light was steady. The kids sat in the den, their voices low. I told myself, this isn't a performance. It's evidence. At 2:28, the doorbell chimed once. Joran. 2 minutes later, another tone. Gabrielle. I opened the door to both. She wore a state badge on a lanyard. Calm voice, kind eyes that scanned like a nurse's. Thank you for letting me in. Ms. Layton. Call me Maura. I said. I offered water, not coffee. The visit would be businesslike. She began her walk-through gently, noting the fridge schedule, the nightlights in the hallway, the first aid box by the sink. Medication storage? She asked. I pointed to the locked drawer. Then the note taped above it. Med times Maura 939, kids 738. Her eyes moved to the children's chart on the wall. Meals, homework, bedtime. This is thorough, she said, voice neutral. I kept mine the same. I'm a retired nurse. Structure helps. Then she called the kids, one by one. Brianna came first, posture straight, voice soft. I wake my brother and sister, she said. Grandma makes breakfast. Gabrielle thanked her and sent her back to the den. Kyron was next. He mentioned crackers for later. Asha clutched her drawing pad but answered when asked. Bathroom's not scary here, she whispered. I heard it from the hallway and felt both pride and ache. When it was my turn again, I spread the documents in sequence. Doorbell 2:32 p.m. drop-off, the school attendance report, counselor note, telehealth record with expired inhaler, grocery receipt dated March 12th, and the timestamp grid. I didn't add commentary. Just laid them out, one by one, like stones forming a bridge. Joran started the same refrains. We just needed a break. It was temporary. You know how parenting is. Gabrielle listened, then asked him to describe their typical weekday routine. He stumbled. Morning times blurred, meals vague. I stayed silent. She turned to me, then back to him. This visit isn't about blame, she said evenly. It's about a plan. From her briefcase came a 3-page document. Safety plan. Temporary placement. She explained point by point. The children would remain with me while Joran completed a parenting course and weekly check-ins. All communication between us would be by text or email. Unannounced visits would occur within 30 to 60 days. This ensures consistency for the children, she said, sliding the form forward. Joran stared at it for a long time before signing. I added my name beneath his. The room exhaled. Gabrielle stood to pack her folder. As she turned, her eyes caught something on the fridge, a paper taped among grocery lists and appointment reminders. It was Asha's drawing. Our house under a wide yellow sun, stick figures holding hands, the word light written in big, uneven letters. Gabrielle smiled. That's beautiful, she said, and asked softly, May I take a quick note photo? I nodded. The shutter clicked, a small sound of grace. When they left, the doorbell chimed again, recording their exit. I walked back to the table, hip aching but steady. I texted Joran a photo of the signed plan and the line. Safety plan filed. March 16th, 5:12 p.m. Then a short thank you to Gabrielle for her professionalism. I saved both screenshots in the folder named Safety Week. I looked once more at the table, papers aligned, pen capped, the air finally still. On the fridge, The word light glowed faintly in the afternoon sun. I let it stay there. At 7:30 that morning, I opened my email. The subject line read, "Parenting classes, compliance schedule." Gabrielle's name was in the CC field, mine just below Joranne's. 6 sessions listed neatly, each marked with dates and times, followed by a 60-day monitoring window and 2 unannounced visits. I printed the message, the laser hum steady, and slipped it into the folder beside the safety plan. Then I uncapped a black pen and filled the squares on the fridge calendar, each one another small promise that I would not forget. I replied immediately, short and professional. Received and confirmed. Routine continues. Pickups supervised. I attached nothing, signed nothing beyond my name. Then I took a screenshot of the sent message and filed it under communication. Boundaries stay firm when they live in writing. Over oatmeal. I told Brianna that sometimes grown-ups take classes to learn better ways to handle their days. "It's not your fault, sweetheart," I said, stirring milk into her bowl. "You just keep being 12. She gave a small nod and finished her breakfast in the quiet rhythm of a child who already knows too much. Just after noon, another email landed. The school accounts office notified me of an unpaid lunch balance and a missing application for free or reduced meals. The balance wasn't large, but the omission said more than the dollars did. I printed the message, paid the amount online, filled out the application, and saved the receipts. On the log sheet, I wrote, "Food insecurity documented before placement week." The printer whirred again, thin paper stacking neatly on top of truth. As the sun went down, my phone buzzed. It was Sherry. "Found footage from last week. Want it?" I answered yes. The ring clip showed the porch in darkness, the children standing outside for almost 2 minutes while a car idled in the street. The license plate was clear, the timestamp unmistakable. Sherry followed with a text giving permission to share it. I thanked her and saved both the clip and her words. I created a new folder labeled Night Events and cross-referenced it with the doorbell grid. Date, time, duration. I typed nighttime exposure, no porch light, unsupervised. Then I attached the file and sent a short email to Gabrielle. Additional footage provided. Documentation attached. No commentary needed. Facts do not require adjectives. Near 8 o'clock, Joranne's name appeared on the screen. "Do we really need all this?" I typed back. "We need what the plan requires." I saved both lines to the archive. The exchange lasted less than a minute, but it was the first one that didn't leave me trembling. When the house settled for the night, I turned off the kitchen light and walked the hallway one more time. Night lights glowed in the outlets. Steady, low, constant. I laid out the children's school clothes, printed a copy of the class schedule for my records, and slipped the lunch debt receipt behind it. Paper by paper, order built its own kind of peace. I turned off the porch light myself and left the folder heavier by 2 thin pages. That morning, I printed duplicates of every record, the lunch receipts, the email exchanges, the class schedule, and the still frames from Sherry's ring footage. Each went into a labeled folder: safety, school, timeline. The paper smelled faintly of ink and calm. I chose a gray blouse, pressed but plain, and took a long, even breath before locking the door behind me. The drive to the elementary school took 12 minutes, enough time to count my inhalations and let composure settle into muscle memory. Gabrielle and Amber met me at the counselor's office door, their professionalism steady, voices low. Joranne arrived 4 minutes late, wearing gym shorts and sunglasses pushed onto his head. He didn't greet anyone. The room was arranged deliberately. Gabrielle at the head, Amber to her left, me across the table from Joranne. Between us sat a small basket of pens and the meeting agenda printed in bold, review of safety plan and school welfare records. The hum of the air conditioner filled the silence that words refused to touch. Amber began with protocol. This meeting is to confirm the children's adjustment and verify compliance with the safety plan. Her tone was neutral, practiced. Gabrielle added, reports indicate consistent attendance, regular meals, and stable sleep routines. Joanne interrupted, laughing without humor. She's just making herself look good. I kept my eyes on the papers in front of me, my hands still. When it was my turn, I didn't speak first. I acted. I slid 3 folders forward, one toward each adult at the table. Each was color-coded and tabbed. These are time-stamped emails, receipts, and observation logs, I said evenly. Everything that occurred under my roof this week is documented here. The paper rustled as Gabrielle flipped pages. Amber's brow creased when she reached the telehealth note about the expired inhaler. No one spoke. The silence grew dense, like humidity before a storm. Then the storm broke. Joanne's hand hit the table with a sharp crack. You're turning them against me. You want to take everything. Gabrielle didn't flinch. We're not here to assign blame. Mr. Hayes, we're reviewing facts. I met his eyes once. Facts don't need sides. A pen rolled off the table, tapping against the tile before settling in the quiet that followed. The sound was small, but it carried finality. Amber cleared her throat softly. The children's attendance has improved. Their teachers report calmer behavior. She signed the page before her and passed it to Gabrielle, who noted monitoring extended, next review in 30 days. I initialed beside them, my handwriting small and exact. No one mentioned the outburst again. In the hallway afterward, the smell of disinfectant replaced the tension. Joanne followed me halfway to the door. You made me look small, he said under his breath. I turned once, meeting his reflection in the glass panel beside us. You did that yourself. Then I walked away. My shoes echoed against the linoleum, each step measured, each one mine. That evening, I filed the signed meeting summary under the March divider in my binder. The papers lay flat, no longer trembling at the edges. Outside, the porch light glowed steady against the dark. I wrote one line on the day's page before closing it. Every form is a mirror. Some just refuse to look. The mail truck stopped outside just after 8. Through the window, I saw the driver step down, clipboard in hand, certified envelope, my name in bold, the sender line from the county courthouse. I signed, thanked him, and brought it inside. The paper was heavier than it should have been. I slid it open with the edge of a butter knife and read the first line twice. Notice of Review and Compliance Hearing. Subject, Joanne Merritt. I exhaled through my nose, scanned the pages into my laptop, and placed the copy on the kitchen table beside the beige folder. Under the ceiling light, the header's blue seal caught the reflection of my coffee mug. By 9. My inbox pinged with Gabrielle's confirmation. Acknowledged Maura. Thank you for maintaining your documentation. I replied a brief note of receipt and CC'd Amber. The printer hummed, feeding the docket page out line by line. I pinned the hearing date to the fridge, April 2nd, and circled it with a green marker. Beneath it, I wrote, Prep 327 and 329. On the paper planner, I repeated the dates in neat ink. Every system had to agree with the others. That was how order held. By mid-morning, I drafted the simplest logistics I could. Sherry agreed to stay with the kids the morning of the hearing. I set aside a small envelope for receipts, copies, and a snack bar, one I might forget to eat. On the top of the page in my notebook, I wrote in block letters, "Let the record speak." Then I closed the cover, The afternoon fell into rhythm, laundry tumbling, the pill organizer clicking open, the timer marking study blocks for homework. I folded towels, laid out uniforms, and kept the house steady. Even in routine, the clock had become my quiet ally. Each tick measured distance from chaos. After the children were asleep, I walked the hallway with the lamp dimmed. On the mantel, under the soft flicker of the nightlight, sat the photo of my late husband, his calm eyes in uniform. For a moment, doubt stirred. Was I too firm? The children loved their father, despite his flaws. Maybe I could have softened the edges, spoken more gently. But as I read the telehealth report again, the one noting malnutrition and fatigue, the doubt faded. Compassion didn't mean undoing truth. It meant holding it steady until someone else could see. At 9:30, my phone lit up with a message from Joran. "Joran, can I just take them tonight? I miss them." I stared at the screen for several seconds, thumb hovering above the keyboard. I typed, deleted, then typed again. Me. Per the safety plan. All exchanges must be supervised and scheduled. Please email to coordinate. I pressed send, watched the word seen appear, and turned the phone face down. That single line would join the archive before bedtime. In the quiet that followed, I checked each room once more. Brianna's breathing was slow and even. The lines on her forehead had finally smoothed. Kyron's snack box sat labeled on the dresser, no longer under a pillow. Asha's nightlight cast a soft pool across her drawing still taped to the fridge, the one with the yellow rays and the word light in shaky capital letters. The house glowed in its own quiet defense. I returned to the kitchen, reset the table for morning, the court notice on top, itinerary beneath, and a yellow sticky note clipped, "Law and lunch receipts." The refrigerator motor hummed steadily behind me. I set my phone alarm for 7:15, the first reminder to call Gabrielle before the school run. Finally. I sat in the doorway light, the walker resting against my knee, and wrote one last sentence in the notebook. If he wants a debate, he'll have to argue with a clock. Then I closed the binder, turned off the kitchen light, and left the notice on top, the only voice I'd need in the morning. At exactly 8:01 a.m., I set 2 mugs of coffee on the table but said nothing. The morning light cut across the wood grain, sharp and even. The pill organizer on the counter clicked its gentle rhythm. My metronome. I slid the official notice of review across the table first, followed by a single-page agenda I'd printed last night. Each bullet was short. Time, action, document. Joran stared at it as if it were a summons written in another language. "This," I said softly, "is what will follow." My voice didn't waver. Years of nursing shifts had taught me how to hold tone steady through chaos. He took a sip of coffee, grimaced, then looked up. "You really turned this into a project, huh?" I didn't respond. I only tapped the first line on the page. 8:15, review schedule. 8:45, confirm attendance. The clock did the talking. By the second item, my hand stopped trembling. I read aloud from the agenda, not for his approval, but for the record. All exchanges supervised, communications in writing, children's routines unchanged until court. Each sentence was measured, printed, time-stamped in the corner. Joran exhaled loudly, that familiar scoff of a man used to pushing noise into silence. "Mom, you're overreacting, and everyone thinks you're—" I held up the notice, the seal still visible through the envelope window. "You can think what you like. The court already thinks differently." He folded his arms, pretending to read the air instead of the words. Silence. Again. Did the work for me? The stack of photos came next, smaller now, paired to essentials. I laid them down gently, one of the doorbell timestamp at 2:32 p.m., another of the resort post from the same day, a receipt from the lunch account beside its payment confirmation, a single still from the ring clip under the caption, "Nightlight Routine Established." "These are the only ones I plan to use," I said. "Everything else is already submitted." He started to protest, but the pill timer beeped again, a reminder that even my medication kept better time than his excuses. I turned it off, then reached for my phone. At 9 sharp, I called Harold, the attorney who'd agreed to walk us through the boundaries of the safety plan. I placed the phone on speaker and folded my hands. Harold's voice was steady, professional, almost soothing. "Mr. Crow? Mrs. Ellis," he began. "Today's review is procedural. The court will evaluate compliance, not character, not emotion. If the safety plan has been followed, it remains in effect. If not, temporary guardianship can extend until review." Joran shifted in his chair, muttering something about paperwork traps. Harold continued without pause. "Mrs. Ellis, your documentation aligns perfectly. Mr. Crow, I suggest focusing on completion of the parenting sessions rather than defending intent." I nodded once and jotted the time in my notes. 9:07, legal confirmation. Compliance motion. When Harold asked if there were questions, I had two. Both were simple, practical. He answered clearly. Then I thanked him and hung up. While Joran sat silent, I turned the laptop toward him. I typed an email addressed to Gabrielle, CCing both him and Amber, the counselor. Subject: Pre-hearing confirmation and documentation summary. I attached the agenda, the notice copy, and Harold's clarifications, all phrased neutrally, each timestamp visible at the bottom of the message. Then I pressed send. The whoosh of delivery filled the quiet. I took a screenshot of the sent message and filed it in the digital binder. At 10:45, a soft knock came at the front door. I'd expected it. Barbara stepped inside, her cardigan buttoned neatly, eyes calm. "I can only stay a minute," she said, holding out a single folded page. Dates and notes, no accusations. Her handwriting was clean, deliberate. January 8th, February 11th, March 3rd. Short lines about missed lunches and unwashed uniforms. She'd kept her own kind of record. I copied her statement, signed the back with the time and date, and returned the original to her hands. "Thank you," I said. She gave a slow nod. "They're good kids. They deserve steady." When she left, the air in the kitchen seemed lighter, as though someone had exhaled for the first time in weeks. Joran's final attempt came after she was gone. "You've turned everyone against me," he said, voice tight. I slid a pen across the table, the tip clicking against the wood. "Everything I've said is time-stamped," I replied. "That's not betrayal. That's record-keeping." He stared at the pen for a moment, then signed the acknowledgement line on the printed agenda. I scanned the page and added it to the folder labeled March 20 pre-hearing morning. By noon, I was packing the file bag, notice on top, safety plan beneath, then school, medical, and ring evidence in order. Barbara's statement sat quietly behind school. I added 2 granola bars, a charger, and an extra inhaler. I texted Sherry the pickup window for Monday's hearing and received her usual thumbs-up emoji in reply. Before we parted, I placed the agenda back on the table. "Argue with me if you must," I said evenly, "but the judge will read the same clock." He didn't answer. He just walked out, closing the door with the soft finality of someone realizing he no longer controlled the timing of things. I sank into the chair, hip aching but heart steady. The folder rested under my hand, warm from the light that cut through the blinds. I closed it gently and whispered to no one. Let the paper speak. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and disinfectant. Security scanned my bag, nodding politely at the labeled folders inside. I found a seat on the second row of courtroom 4B, the one with the best view of the judge's bench and the clock above it. My pill timer sat quiet in my purse. No beeps, no excuses. When Judge Hendris called our case, I stood, breathing in for 4, out for 4, like I'd practiced. Gabriel gave me a small nod across the aisle. Joran stood beside his attorney, jaw clenched, tapping his foot like a metronome wound too tight. When the judge asked for the CPS report, Gabrielle rose first. Your Honor, this case concerns compliance with the signed safety plan dated March 16th. She spoke clearly, without weight or pity. Mrs. Ellis has maintained stable care, documented routines, and medical follow-through. Mr. Crow has completed one of 6 parenting sessions and submitted partial attendance logs. I kept my eyes on the courtroom clock, not him. The second hand moved in perfect rhythm. Amber, the school counselor, followed next. She described how Brianna's attendance had stabilized, how Kyron smiled in class again, and how Asha no longer appeared anxious about restroom access. Nurse Patel confirmed the bruise documentation and noted hygiene improvement. When asked for corroboration, I passed forward a slim folder, 3 color-coded tabs, 1 for each report. No commentary, no embellishment, just the grid of dates and signatures. Judge Hendris flipped through a few pages, murmured, "Thorough." Then came the moment I'd prepared for. "Mrs. Ellis," the judge said, "do you have exhibits?" "Yes, Your Honor, 1 page." I rose, stepped to the table, and handed the clerk a single sheet. Top left, doorbell 2:32 p.m., March 10th. Top right, Resort Post, March 10th, 2:37 p.m. Below them, lunch debt ledger, paid March 17th. Bottom, ring clip still, 9:11 p.m., nightlight routine. Established. Dates and times are printed, I said. My voice carried, calm as glass. Then I sat. No one spoke for several seconds. Paper rustled, the only sound that mattered. Joran's lawyer cleared his throat. My client wishes to explain context. The judge nodded once. Your Honor, Joran began, these screenshots are out of context. That was a stressful week. We needed... He stopped, words tripping over frustration. She's making herself look like some saint while I'm painted the villain. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Crow, please describe your children's weekday routine. He opened his mouth, then shut it. His face reddened. That's not the point. It is precisely the point, the judge replied. This court considers facts, not volume. The room stilled. Even the fluorescent hum seemed to pause. From the gallery, Barbara rose briefly. Your Honor, may I submit a statement for the record? The judge gestured assent. Her page, short, factual, listed 3 occasions she'd seen the children underfed and 1 time she'd offered to help. Dates only. No opinion. The judge slid it into the file without comment. Then the ruling. Based on presented evidence, Judge Hendris said, temporary placement with Mrs. Ellis is extended 90 days. Weekly check-ins to continue. Mr. Crow will complete parenting classes and remain financially responsible for school and medical expenses. All exchanges supervised. Written communication only. The clerk typed rapidly, the rhythmic clicks replacing tension with order. When asked if I understood, I said 1 sentence. I will follow the schedule exactly. The judge nodded. The gavel touched wood, not a slam, just a confirmation. Outside the courtroom, the March air felt warmer than it had in weeks. Joran followed a few steps behind, voice low. You made me small, he muttered. I turned toward him. Steady, The clock did. Then I walked to the curb, phone already in hand. I texted Gabrielle, received and understood. Within seconds, her reply came. Order confirmed. Thank you for your consistency. I forwarded the message to Amber for the school file, then looked up at the courthouse clock. 12:17 p.m. exactly. I left with nothing new to say and everything I needed on paper. The mail truck rattled past the curb just before sunset. A moment later, the sound of the slot clinking broke the hush inside the house. I reached the hallway slowly, my hip still stiff in the afternoons. The certified envelope lay on the mat, heavy with the quiet authority of government paper. Inside was the embossed court order, signed, sealed, official, 90 days of custody, with review extensions possible. I ran a hand over the raised seal, tracing the edge like a heartbeat finally leveling out. Then I placed it flat on the kitchen table, the same table that once carried tension, cameras, and chaos. The surface reflected nothing but the soft gold of late light. The paper didn't make a sound, but somehow the house seemed to hum with relief. The table itself looked different now. It wasn't a battleground anymore, it was breakfast again. There were crumbs from toast, pencil shavings from math homework, and a drawing taped crookedly near the edge. The afternoon sun painted the wood in soft stripes. I brewed tea instead of coffee. No rush, no adrenaline, and leaned against the counter. The house smelled like lemon soap and warm bread. Not stress. By the time the school bus sighed to a stop, I was already smiling. Brianna came bursting in, waving a quiz marked with a bright red A. Kyron followed, serious as always, asking if he could help chop vegetables. Asha climbed onto the stool, pulling out her newest drawing, a house with 3 windows, a tree, and written in shaky letters above it, safe. I didn't correct her spelling. I just taped it to the fridge, right beside the court order copy. Side by side, later, as I rinsed the dishes. My phone buzzed once on the counter. Joranne's name. I'm starting the parenting class. I don't expect forgiveness. I stared at the message for a long moment. The words didn't sting. They simply rested in the air like dust caught in light. I typed back, I believe in the class. Keep going. No punctuation beyond that. No softness added. No anger withheld. Just truth. Then I archived the conversation, not deleted it, not cherished it, just stored it where it belonged, as part of the record and no longer the wound. Dinner came with small laughter, nothing loud, nothing forced. Kyron told a knock-knock joke that didn't make sense. Brianna rolled her eyes but smiled anyway. Asha asked for 2 bedtime stories instead of 1, and I said yes. The night routine moved like a clock finally back in sync. Baths, pajamas, nightlight. When I passed the hall, the nightlight glowed steady, golden. I touched the switch gently, but I didn't turn it off. The quiet in the house wasn't empty anymore. It was deliberate. The kind of quiet earned after too many days of noise that didn't say anything. I gathered the remaining papers, notes, receipts, copies, and slid them into a final binder labeled complete. The sound of the latch closing felt like punctuation on the porch. The air carried the scent of magnolia and the low hum of early summer insects. The sky was lavender, stretched wide and forgiving. I sat on the wooden step, feeling the ache in my hip but no longer resenting it. I thought of my late husband, the way he used to say, "You can't rush a wound closed, you let it breathe." I looked toward the lighted windows and whispered, "We did it our way." No shouting, just paper and patience. The streetlight flickered on. Inside, the kids' laughter softened into sleep. I stood, steady on my cane, and made one last round through the house. Each room breathed differently now, like it belonged to life again. On the kitchen table, two things waited under the lamplight, the court order and Asha's drawing. One was crisp and official, the other, crayon and hope. Both said the same word in their own language. Safe. I whispered. That's enough. Then I turned off the porch light and let the nightlight glow be the only star left awake. Justice, I thought, doesn't always need a gavel. Sometimes it just needs light. You know, looking back now, I've learned that strength doesn't always shout. It documents. It waits. It loves quietly. Sometimes protecting your family means standing firm, even when your voice trembles. And sometimes justice looks less like revenge and more like peace, the kind that lets children sleep safely at night. If you're watching this, maybe you've had to stand your ground too. Maybe you've had to choose patience over pride. Tell me in the comments, where did you find your strength when life tested you? Did this story remind you of someone in your own family? If this video touched your heart, press 1 in the comments or tell me what state you're watching from. And if you'd like to hear more real stories of courage, family, and grace, please subscribe to the channel because quiet strength deserves to be heard.